A year after her divorce from Charles, Diana was on vacation in France with her partner filmmaker Dodi Al-Fayed, who she had allegedly met in 1986 when he was playing in a polo match against her then husband. At 11:30 a.m., Diana lands in Paris. Fayed immediately spots the paparazzi out of his window. As soon as the doors opened, cameras started clicking. The aggressiveness of the photographers and their sheer numbers would increase as the day progressed. Diana and Fayed arrived at the Ritz Paris, owned by his father, through the back door, and occupy the Imperial Suite. At 5:40 p.m., Diana is in the salon. Dodi ventures to Reposi Jewelers, where he picks out 2 rings that will be delivered to the Imperial Suite. Shortly after midnight on Sunday, August 31st, 1997, Al-Fayed and Diana, along with bodyguard Trevor Rees-Jones, left the Ritz Hotel in Paris. At 7 p.m., the couple exit the hotel through the rear entrance and are driven to the Fayed residence near the Arc de Triomphe. Photographers were waiting at the building's front door when they arrived. Fayed fumed. There was an ugly shoving match. Once inside, Fayed pulled his butler aside, telling him about his plan to propose that night. The ring was placed on the nightstand in his bedroom. He checked to ensure that they had several bottles of Dom Perignon on ice for the big moment. The first restaurant they tried that evening, Chez Benoit, was quickly overrun by photographers. The couple returned to the hotel at 9:50. Utilizing the front entrance, they head for its El Espelon restaurant. Diana orders Dover sole, vegetable tempura, a mushroom and asparagus omelet. Fayed ordered grilled turbot. He quickly grows suspicious that photographers might pose as restaurant patrons, so he requests that their food be delivered to their room. With bodyguard Trevor Rees-Jones, Fayed and Diana attempt to evade photographers by leaving the hotel through its rear entrance to return to his apartment near the Arc de Triomphe. They enter the backseat of a black Mercedes S280 and are driven by Ritz security employee Henry Paul. By this time, Paul had had a scotch and a beer. His blood alcohol level was determined to be more than 3 times France's legal limit. A September 1997 analysis of Paul's blood, hair, and spinal cord later detected the antidepressant Prozac and Tiopride, sometimes used to combat alcohol withdrawal. Diana and Fayed were the rear passengers. Trevor Rees-Jones, Fayed's family personal protection team member, was in the right front passenger seat. The occupants were not wearing seatbelts. After leaving the Rue Cambon and crossing the Place de la Concorde, they drove along Cours Lorraine and Cours Albert, the embankment road along the right bank of River Seine, into the Place du Lelma underpass. At 23 past midnight, Paul lost control of the vehicle.
Good evening. The People's Princess is dead. Across the country, across the world, millions are trying to come to terms with the awful tragedy of Diana's untimely death.
In their first official announcement, detectives investigating Saturday's fatal crash have said the driver of the limousine in which the Princess of Wales and Dodi Fayed were travelling had been drinking that night. the amount of alcohol in his blood well above the legal limit.
A post-mortem has shown that Henry Paul was 3 times over the legal alcohol limit, the equivalent of drinking 8 glasses of wine or more. He was not a professional driver, but the deputy head of security at the Ritz Hotel.
At the Pundalelma tunnel entrance, the car struck the right-hand wall and then swerved to the left of the 2-lane carriageway before it collided head-on with the 13th pillar that supported the roof. The vehicle was traveling at an estimated speed of 105 kilometers per hour. This was over twice the tunnel's 50 kilometers per hour limit. It then spun and hit the stone wall of the tunnel backwards, finally coming to a stop.
Diana, Princess of Wales, has been seriously injured in a car accident in Paris. Her companion, the Harrods heir Dodi Al Fayed, has been killed. The driver of the princess's car is also understood to be dead. The accident happened at just after midnight in the west of the city near the Alma Bridge.
The impact caused substantial damage, particularly to the vehicle's front half, as there was no guardrail between the pillars to prevent this. The Mercedes slammed into a pillar in the center of the highway. Diana, Al Fayed, and Paul were not wearing seatbelts.
Princess Diana and Dodi had been enjoying dinner at the Ritz Hotel. They left sometime after midnight, local time. We're heading back and we're going through a tunnel in the 8th arrondissement, the 8th district in the west of Paris near the River Seine, where they were involved in some kind of collision. We don't know with what, but we do know what the consequence was, and that was that the car rolled over, ended up on its roof.
Paul and Al Fayed were pronounced dead at the scene, while Diana and Rhys Jones were rushed to the hospital. Rhys Jones survived, but sadly Diana's injuries were too severe. The princess suffered from a concussion, broken arm, cut thigh, and major chest injuries. Operations lasted for over 2 hours. However, the doctors couldn't regain a stable heartbeat. Princess Diana was pronounced dead, age 36, at 4 a.m., August 31st. She died from internal bleeding, along with various injuries.
Confirmation from our very own Foreign Secretary, Robin Cook, who's in the Far East at the moment, that Diana, Princess of Wales, has in fact been killed in that car accident in Paris. Just a few hours ago, there had been extreme concern that Diana was very seriously injured when she was taken from the wreckage. There was a news blackout, to all intents and purposes, for a significant amount of time. Confirmation from the Interior Minister from Paris for a short time, and now there is confirmation that Diana, Princess of Wales, has died. She died at 4 a.m. after going into cardiac arrest. That, according to doctors at the hospital in Paris, Diana, Princess of Wales, is dead.
There's fresh controversy surrounding Princess Diana this lunchtime after newspaper reports linking her with Dodi Fayed, the son of the Harrods boss Mohammed Al Fayed.
After years of separation, Diana divorced from Prince Charles in 1996. The following summer, she began dating Dodi Al Fayed, the son of billionaire Mohammed Al Fayed, who owned the Ritz Hotel in Paris and Harrods department store in London. Al Fayed first met Princess Diana in 1986 during a polo match against Prince Charles at Windsor. It wasn't until 11 years later that the pair became close, when Al Fayed's father invited the Princess of Wales and her children to be his guests on board his yacht in Saint-Tropez.
Diana and Dodi met long before 1997. They met at various events, film premieres, at the polo, at the horse show, the sort of places that people of their kind would meet at.
guest of her friend Mohammed Al Fayed, the boss of Harrods, a very controversial figure in the recent political Cash for Questions affair. Her decision to join him here in Saint-Tropez to enjoy the use of his yacht has again allowed her critics to question the princess's judgment.
I think she liked him very much. I don't know if she was in love with him, but she was in love with the idea of him, because she immediately saw, with her power and Dodi's power through his father, they could do great things together. So he fitted in to her blueprint for her future. And she wanted to go more into the areas of not sort of going and cutting ribbons at hospitals, but she wanted to actually be out in the field doing things. And that was her raison d'etre. And she was really excited about the future and what she realised that she had the power to change things. And that's really was exciting to her.
For British royal watchers, it has been another day afloat off the coast of Saint-Tropez. Their focus, Mohammed Al Fayed's villa, where the princess and her sons are holiday guests. Today, she walked down onto the small stretch of beach, appearing comfortable with the media attention. For half an hour, she chatted to her security men as the foreign paparazzi well within sight snapped away and British photographers cruised by in the Mediterranean heat. It was here where, according to their reports, the princess held her impromptu and floating press conference. Today, they reacted with surprise that she is now complaining about the media's oppressive presence.
If you're going to choose one place in the world where the paparazzi actually set up home here for the whole summer, they're here for 3 months, she just never thought about it properly at all. And she was going to get caught within minutes, and that's precisely what happened. I think then to complain that the press are around too much is faintly ridiculous.
Most of the paparazzi following the princess here are foreign photographers, which must cast considerable doubt on whether she will ever be able to escape the limelight, even if, as reported, she takes her son's advice and decides to live abroad. Yet for now, those decisions can wait. This is holiday time to sail on board Al Fayed's luxury yacht. Time to enjoy the Riviera sun with Princes William and Harry. This afternoon, she boarded a 150-foot cruiser, also belonging to the Harrods boss, to sail away from Saint-Tropez, to slip away from the media glare.
Since her divorce from Prince Charles in 1996, tabloids had speculated about Diana's alleged romances. When a photographer caught the couple embracing, the picture was sold to a British newspaper for almost £250,000.
On holiday with Dodi Fayed. 3 British papers have paid £500,000 for them. Other publications worldwide are eagerly doing deals. Jason Fraser's a British photojournalist handling sales of the pictures taken by an Italian cameraman off Sardinia.
What you have here is a woman who 3 weeks ago told the world's press, "You're in for a big surprise." She invited us, as good as, to take a set of pictures like this. She knew it was coming. They were taken in a very public place, in a playground for the rich and famous.
It's suggested the photographer himself may make £3 million. Is that possible?
I think that's probably a bit of an exaggeration, but I think he'll do very well out of it, certainly.
This kind of fixation and scrutiny was nothing new for the princess. The tabloids had been hounding her from the very beginning.
Just weeks after her controversial holiday with the Al Fayed family, which was widely discussed in the tabloids, it's emerged that Princess Diana has enjoyed a second holiday, this time with Mohammed Al Fayed's son.
Diana upset the apple cart during her marriage to Prince Charles. After the divorce, she wasn't willing to let herself or her children be pushed around by the royals. In TV appearances, she spoke openly about her divorce and her struggles, particularly her struggle with bulimia and depression, something that the royals had never done before.
The most daunting aspect was the media attention, because my husband and I, we were told when we got engaged that the media would go quietly, and it didn't. And then when we were married, they said it would go quietly, and it didn't. And then it started to focus very much on me. And I seemed to be on the front of a newspaper every single day, which is an isolating experience. And the higher the media place you, is the bigger the drop. And I was very aware of that.
It's always been my concern to touch people with leprosy, trying to show in a simple action that they are not reviled, nor are we repulsed. HIV does not make people dangerous to know, so you can shake their hands and give them a hug. Heaven knows they need it. We must recognise that not all who are HIV positive are ill. In fact, many of them are healthier than you and I.
You have to know that when you have bulimia, you're very ashamed of yourself and you hate yourself. So, and people think you're wasting food. So you don't discuss it with people. Because I'm not a political figure, I am a humanitarian figure. And always have been and always will be.
In an expose-all interview with Martin Bashir, Diana confessed that she did not like herself and was ashamed of how she could not cope with the pressures of royal life. Such honesty was unheard of in the royal milieu.
Were you able to admit that you were in fact unwell, or did you feel compelled simply to carry on performing as the Princess of Wales?
I felt compelled to perform. Well, when I say perform, I was compelled to go out and do my engagements and not let people down and support them and love them. And in a way, by being out in public, they supported me, although they weren't aware just how much healing they were giving me, and it carried me through.
But did you feel that you had to maintain the public image of a successful Princess of Wales?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did.
Her openness made the public warm to her. Finally, there seemed to be some reality in a royal household. Diana told the press that some members of the royal family thought that she was unstable, admitting that she did not get along with her extended family at times.
When you say you were never given any credit, what do you mean?
Well, anything good I ever did, nobody ever said a thing. Never said, well done, or was it okay? But if I tripped up, which invariably I did, because I knew at the game, a ton of bricks came down on me.
Well, Charles was so used to having all the attention on him, which it had been since he was born, he didn't like the idea that they walked down a street, say when they were doing a royal engagement, and the crowd were calling, Diana, Diana. So he felt surplus.
The Di mania continued. Prince Charles was proud of his wife, but it was now becoming obvious that the crowds wanted to see her more than him. It's been suggested that the prince was caught completely off his guard by this, and that his pride became mixed with a twinge of jealousy. He joked about it in public.
I haven't yet worked out a method of splitting my wife in half. She can do both sides.
And he referred to his wife's popularity again at a banquet in New Zealand.
I've come to the conclusion that really it would have been far easier to have had two wives. To have covered both sides of the street. And I could have walked down the middle, directing the operation.
This kind of criticism was unheard of, but it was a breath of fresh air for the public. When she died somewhat mysteriously on August 31st, 1997, there was a lot of talk about Princess Diana being murdered. Conspiracy theorists believe that she had been silenced for good, and even her own son, Harry, had expressed doubts in the widely believed version of events. August 31st, 1997. After returning from Bosnia, Diana went on a cruise with her friend Rosa Monckton. They spent 5 days between August 15th to the 20th, cruising the islands of Greece in Monckton's boat. According to Rosa, the media did not trace them on this cruise as it was such a small boat, and no one was aware that the Princess of Wales was on board. She disapproved of Mohammed Al Fayed as a traveling companion for Diana and advised her not to vacation with his family. During their trip, Diana told her friend that the relationship with Hasnat was over. Dodi was going to give her a ring, but she said that it was going firmly on her right hand.
I said to the princess, "When are you coming home?" "I'm coming home on Sunday, Paul. I'm just bored. I'm on this boat. It's freezing cold downstairs. It's boiling hot on deck. I'm sending these pictures out and nobody's coming back to me. I'm having no communication. I need to come home. But the only way home is on the Harrods jet. The only way I can get home is via Paris, because Dodi has to go to Paris to do some business for his father. How is he with you? Oh, he's very spoiling. He's very generous, the princess said. He's given me a necklace, some earrings. He's given me a watch. I said, you know what's coming next, don't you? He's going to give you a ring. Do you think so? Oh, yes. He'll give you a ring. But remember, when he gives it to you, put it on the fourth finger of your right hand. Oh, yes. Fourth finger, right hand. I can hear her saying it. Fourth finger, right hand.
I didn't question Dodi about it, but he did come to my office, which was 2 doors away from his father's office in Harrods, and he did express to me the depth of his love for the princess. And he said to me, Michael, there'll never, ever be another woman for me. Never.
Paul Burrell was constantly at Diana's side, one moment maintaining the distance of a man in service, the next joking with the boss.
Towards the end of her life, of course, she found her soulmate. Her soulmate was Hasnat Khan, the heart surgeon, not Dodi Al-Fayed. Hasnat Khan had been the princess's companion for over 2 years. Nobody knew about Hasnat Khan. That was not played out on the world stage. Whereas, after they'd broken up, the princess was invited to the south of France by the Mohammed Al-Fayeds. She met Dodi Al-Fayed. Did you know that the romance of the princess and Dodi Al-Fayed was 30 days from beginning to end? It only lasted 30 days. That was not the love of her life. That was not the man she was going to marry. That's all fabrication. I spoke to her regularly when she was away. Have you seen Hasnat? I said, yes, I went for a drink with him last night. What does he think of me being here in the south of France with Dodi Al-Fayed? Well, he's not too pleased. Has he seen the pictures in the papers? Yes, he has, because you know his routine. You know every morning he goes to the corner shop and sees the press. You know that. And I know that's what you're doing. You're manipulating the world's media by having these pictures taken to show Hasnat who you're with. It's a sort of a... Are you jealous? Do you mind? Do you care? Are you bothered?
The best thing what I thought we could do is stop reading about it. And if I would read something and that would be contradictory to the events or the reality, then obviously you get upset.
And of course Hasnat was bothered. And I didn't find out until recently that he called her the day before she died on her mobile phone. He called her to try and patch up their relationship. Had she returned to London, I truly believe the romance between Hasnat Khan and the princess would have been rekindled. It was too strong. It was too deep. They were true soulmates.
Diana's friend said that the relationship had broken down because of Diana's frustration with Hasnat. He wouldn't agree to marry her or even take the relationship public. Dodi was designed to make him jealous. 20th August 1997. Diana arrives in the French Riviera. She spends 9 days with Dodi on his father's yacht. In just over a week, she will be dead. Saturday, 30th August 1997. Diana leaves Sardinia on a private jet. Heading for London, the couple decides to spend a night in Paris. Before they leave, Diana calls Richard Kay, a friend who covered the royals in the press, and tells him that she has decided to change her life radically. She would complete her obligations to her charities and then completely withdraw from her formal public life. Little did she know that she would be withdrawing from life itself. At 0023, Paul lost control of the vehicle.
Good evening. The People's Princess is dead across the country, across the world. Millions are trying to come to terms with the awful tragedy of Diana's untimely death.
Despite attempts to save her life, Diana's injuries were too extensive and resuscitation attempts, including internal cardiac massage, were unsuccessful. Her heart had been displaced to the right side of the chest, which tore the pulmonary vein and the pericardium. Diana died at the hospital at approximately 4 a.m.
Diana, Princess of Wales, has been seriously injured in a car accident in Paris.
We are getting one report from a news agency that the Princess is suffering from concussion.
French radio is saying that the accident happened in western Paris when the car she was traveling in collided with another vehicle in a tunnel. The Princess is reported to have been taken to hospital. There is no news of her condition, and as yet the report is unconfirmed.
But one wonders if one is being told the whole truth at the moment.
Stephen, I have to interrupt there because within the last few moments, the Press Association in Britain, citing unnamed British sources, has reported that Diana, Princess of Wales, has died. This is not yet confirmed by any official source.
On September 6, 1997, 2.5 billion people tuned in to watch Diana's funeral.
She will always be in our thoughts and forever in our hearts. And that's how I see her.
Just sorrow. Just sorrow and wish we'd told before we loved her.
I just can't believe she's gone.
On a sea of flowers, 1 million bouquets have now been laid at London's palaces.
Her death touched the hearts of thousands, and her legacy lives on to this day through her sons, William and Harry, as well as her philanthropic work.
During the service, the people listened transfixed, the music and words as precious as their memories of Diana. Many fought with tears during the traditional parts of the service. But it was Elton John who really touched Diana's people.
More than you ever know. And it seems to me you lived your life like a candle in the moon, never fading with the sunset when the rain your footsteps will always follow along England's greenest field. Candles burned out long before. Your legend never will.
This was one of the largest non-sporting television audiences of all time.
Still can't believe it. Because they talk about her being dead, and then you see her alive on the television. You still can't believe it.
It is a tribute to her level-headedness and strength that despite the most bizarre life imaginable after her childhood, she remained intact, true to herself. There is no doubt that she was looking for a new direction in her life at this time. She talked endlessly of getting away from England, mainly because of the treatment that she received at the hands of the newspapers. I don't think she ever understood why her genuinely good intentions were sneered at by the media, why there appeared to be a permanent quest on their behalf to bring her down. It is baffling. My own and only explanation is that genuine goodness is threatening to those at the opposite end of the moral spectrum. It is a point to remember that of all the ironies about Diana, perhaps the greatest was this: a girl given the name of the ancient goddess of hunting was, in the end, the most hunted person of the modern age.
No one who knew Diana will ever forget her. Millions of others who never met her, but felt they knew her, will remember her. I, for one, believe there are lessons to be drawn from her life and from the extraordinary and moving reaction to her death.
She was the people's princess. And that's how she will stay, how she will remain in our hearts and in our memories forever.
The outpouring of love was just overwhelming, really.
She was a unique person. She touched so many people's lives. She took away people's fear. She showed them love. Everybody who came into contact with her loved her.
We were promised, Nick, a unique funeral, and that's exactly what we got.
Oh, yes. Everybody must have been deeply moved. The tone was so right, Trevor, from absolutely everybody, from young children delightedly tossing flowers onto the hearse on that final journey, to the thousands upon thousands on the streets, crying and applauding.
It was a funeral that involved everybody, from the humblest in the land to the highest in the land. It went without a hitch, and it was so absolutely appropriate.
Mark, can you put words to the scene you have just witnessed?
It's extraordinarily difficult, isn't it? What I can say is a great grieving tide of humanity here seemed to hold their breath collectively as the hearse went by. There was barely a sound, just the flash of flashbulbs going off. I think, as you can still see, some of the twinkling candles in the background as a back.
To this day, theories surrounding what really happened on the night of Diana's death continue to circulate the mainstream. One of the most popular theories is that the crash was murder, orchestrated by the royal family and M16. Witnesses said that Henry Paul, the driver, had drunk a scotch and 1 beer, but the findings from the blood test said he was 3 times over the legal limit. He was also on Prozac and Tiopride. Was the crash his fault?
When I first heard there'd been this appalling tragedy in Paris, I naturally assumed that it had been a terrible accident. But subsequently, everything that happened made me believe that it wasn't an accident and that it was a conspiracy. It's very hard to say that. I didn't want to believe it. But circumstances, many, many circumstances, have persuaded me to that conclusion. The London Evening Paper on Monday which was published at about 10 o'clock in the morning, had a headline, "Drunk as a Skunk," and claimed that the car was traveling at 120 miles an hour, 180 kilometers an hour, claimed that the speedometer was stuck at that speed, claimed that the driver was 3 times over the legal limit. At that stage, on that Monday, they hadn't even analyzed the blood samples allegedly taken from Henri Paul. It was established at the British inquest that the car was only going 60 miles an hour. Of course, that's fast, but it's not 120 miles an hour. And from then on, everything that happened led me to believe that it was, as the English jury eventually concluded, unlawful killing. And everything I saw during the years, it took 10 years before there was an inquest in this country, in Britain. And everything I saw and everything I heard pointed to a cover-up. And you only have to look at all the evidence. The fact that all the cameras on the route to the crash were switched off. Unbelievable, truly unbelievable. The fact that the Fiat Uno, which allegedly collided with the Mercedes sedan, has never been found. The fact that the man who could have been driving it, a photographer called Anderson, he was found dead inside his car. Allegedly, he'd committed suicide, but he had 2 holes in his head, 2 shots. Well, when you're committing suicide, you don't need the second shot. 1 is quite enough.
Because of all the theories, English police later started an investigation called Operation Paget. They eventually concluded that it was just an unfortunate accident. Many, many people do not believe this to be true. Dodi's father claimed that they were purposefully killed because Diana was pregnant with Dodi's child. He said that the royals could not accept that an Egyptian Muslim could eventually be the stepfather of the future King of England. Tests showed no signs of pregnancy. Fayed did not believe these tests. Some reports say her condition after the crash would have made it impossible to test her for latent pregnancy.
The French investigation carried out a major search for the Fiat Uno, but they couldn't locate the car. And after this length of time, it's very unlikely that we shall do so.
Diana herself thought someone was out to get her.
The princess had written me a letter, and in that letter she said, "The next few months are the most difficult in my life. I fear that my husband is planning an accident in my car, head injuries, in order that he can remarry." Now, when you read those words, a prophecy the princess made 10 months before she died that came true, it's rather eerie. So I have no idea whether people were listening, people were following, people were watching. All I can believe is that no one would sign an order to murder the mother of the future King of England.
It would have been most unwelcome to the British royal family and the British establishment for Diana, the mother of the future king, to have married a Muslim. Had they had 2 beautiful children, the newspapers would have been writing about Diana and Dodi and their children. You would have had, in effect, in Britain, an alternative royal family. Now that could not have been allowed. It would not have been allowed because it would have taken the focus away from the House of Windsor. They didn't know, 1, whether she was pregnant, 2, whether they were coming back to London on the Monday to announce an engagement. Then it would have been too late. Diana rang one journalist who she trusted, Richard Kay, to say that she wanted to tell him something important. Well, we don't know what that was. It's very convenient for a lot of people that Diana, Princess of Wales, is no longer here. Had she lived, she would have been playing a major part in the bringing up of her sons, Prince William and Prince Harry. When, of course, she was killed, there was no question of that.
There are also theories that the photographers were partly involved, that they actually caused the crash and were working undercover with M16 or the royal family.
The first report said that she was not badly injured, that one of the chasing paparazzi, a man called Roman Rat, opened the car door. He actually put his hand on her neck to feel her pulse and spoke to her and said, "Help is coming, it's on its way." He wouldn't have been talking to her unless she had been compos mentis, as long as she'd been aware of what was going on.
Dodi's father claimed that Trevor Rees-Jones, Diana's bodyguard and only survivor, was in on the plan, but his injuries were life-threatening and severe. His face was flattened with numerous bones broken or crushed. If he was involved, he took one for the team. Some witnesses said they saw bright flashes along the road. Another theory was that someone was trying to blind the driver as he raced along the road at high speed. It could have all been set up by someone chasing the car to make it drive fast, then someone else blinding the driver. The police did not think that was the case. Multiple sources say that if Diana had been taken to the hospital sooner, she might have survived.
In this country, in America, scoop and shoot. You scoop up the patient from the scene of the crash and you take them as fast as you can to the best equipped nearby emergency room. In this case, that did not happen. It took an amazing hour and 40 minutes to get to a hospital 4 miles away, and on the way there, they drove past 2 other hospitals which could quite easily have treated her. Now, any accident specialist, trauma specialist, will say the best place for a patient to be is in a hospital, because only there would they have been able to detect fully the extent of her internal injuries. Why that wasn't done? I mean, even at the gates of the hospital, they stopped for a number of minutes before taking her inside. None of this makes sense.
It's the image seared into so many minds. 12-year-old Prince Harry and 15-year-old Prince William, heads bowed, walking behind a horse-drawn carriage holding their mother's coffin.
You say you didn't cry for years.
I didn't. The first time I cried was at the burial.
But then after that?
After that.
For years?
Yeah.
Why?
Another person who attempted to better understand what went on that night that shocked the world was Diana's youngest son, Harry. In his 2023 memoir, Spare, he revealed that he asked his chauffeur to drive through the Paris tunnel where his mother, Princess Diana, died in 1997 at the same speed of 65 miles per hour her car had been traveling at before the crash that killed her. The Duke of Sussex reflected on finding closure after his mother's death. In an excerpt shared by the publication, Harry wrote about attending the 2007 Rugby World Cup semi-final in Paris when he was 23 years old. While there, he spoke to his chauffeur about the tunnel in Paris where his mother was being driven through when her car crashed. The World Cup provided me with a driver, and on my first night in the City of Light, I asked him if he knew the tunnel where my mother... I watched his eyes in the rear view, growing large. The tunnel is called Punta Lelma. I told him, yes, he knew it. Harry, who was 12 years old when Diana died, went on to explain how he asked the driver to go through the tunnel at precisely 65 miles per hour. The exact speed Mummy's car had supposedly been driving, according to the police, at the time of the crash. He continued, not 120 miles per hour, as the press originally reported.
One thing I found in the book that was absolutely tragic and heartbreaking was the fact that he retraced his mother's final journey. He actually went in a car into that tunnel. He felt he had to do that.
Yeah, devastating. I mean, I've done it, and for me it was devastating, as I can't think what it would have been like for Harry to retrace her final moments. And he's actually gone through the final steps as well, gone through to the hospital and done everything. And for a while he wanted to research his mother's death, and he was put off, I think, by the royals, who said it's been done to death and leave it. But I think the boys still feel that there's something that they don't quite understand about their mother's death.
Off we went, weaving through traffic, cruising past the Ritz, where Mummy had her last meal with her boyfriend that August night. Harry wrote. Then we came to the mouth of the tunnel. We zipped ahead, went over the lip of the tunnel's entrance, the bump that supposedly sent Mummy's Mercedes veering off course. But the lip was nothing. We barely felt it. He noted that he then asked himself, is that all of it? It's nothing, just a straight tunnel. Harry emphasized that the experience wasn't what he expected, as he'd always imagined the tunnel as some treacherous passageway, inherently dangerous. But it was just a short, simple, no-frills tunnel.
And remember, Lorraine, Harry is looking at all of this through an 11-year-old's eyes, through a boy who could not understand why his mother was no longer there, the mother that gave him the hugs, the mother that loved him to death, the mother that would write to him at school and say, I'm coming down to Ludgrove this weekend just to stand on the touchline, watch you play football, and give me a big squeeze, and I'll fill your pockets full of chocolate. That was his mummy he missed, and nothing ever replaced it.
He said that while driving through, the tunnel allowed him to gain closure. It also brought on some immense feelings of pain. It is true that Diana's life was complicated, and it ended tragically. There are still some unanswered questions around her death. Diana didn't just accept the world around her for the way it was, and she used her role in the public eye to help causes that many others overlooked. Diana was proof that it is still possible to achieve and surpass the expectations placed on you by other people.
The Princess of Wales was a new kind of royal. She carried out her duties with elegance and style, just like other members of the royal family. But there was a difference. She wasn't stuffy, responding to people naturally, and the people took her to their hearts. She was happy to show the kind of human side that other royals kept hidden, giving the monarchy a refreshing new profile throughout the world.
Diana was glamorous, magnetic, photogenic, mercurial, and intuitive. Media victim and perpetrator. The Real Princess of Kensington, a reality star before such a thing existed. What made Diana so special to millions, if not billions of people, was her innate ability to offer comfort to those who needed it, and by always doing what she believed was right, even when it went against socialite norms or royal tradition.